Awesome. Well, we'll give everybody to start a minute to start funneling in. And but the whole point of this is for this to be a really interactive demo and show you guys all of the efficiencies that are coming your way. So we're gonna roll right into our next presentation because I see Dan here. Hi, Dan. How are you?
Hi, Christine. How's it going?
It's going good. Um, I am so excited to have you here. And I am so excited to talk about Sanford Tax. And we're implementing Sanford Tax in our practice for this upcoming tax season because I just think that it's like a no-brainer after seeing what it can do. I don't want to steal your thunder. I want to, let you just show everybody all about it. But um you and I have talked, and you were just listening to us talk with Matt and Madison as well. From doing presentations for this audience, these tax talks for the last couple of months throughout the year, one of the things that has really come up as a recurring theme is this struggle of communication and document collection from our clients. That's really driving our efficiency down. It's taking a lot of our time, and especially when it comes to tax season, that's a lot of communication and a lot of document collection. And really, the thing that we need more than anything is making that easier for us, easier for our clients. And then here comes Stanford Tax with this really beautiful solution to a lot of that. So, do you want to dive right in?
Sure, sure. And yeah, just to build on what you just said, one of them, we've spoken to hundreds of firms, and one theme that keeps coming up over and over again is the frustration of sitting down to work on a client's return, only to realize that you can't even prepare the return because you're missing information. And the process of figuring out what's missing, that's a pain. And then actually the process of getting that from the client and chasing them for what's missing, that's also a pain. And at Stanford Tax, that's what we're focused on solving. That's really all we're focused on. At the moment, we don't do anything else. Um, we want to make it as simple as possible for you to collect tax information from your clients and to organize that information. And I'll share my screen in a moment, and we'll dive in. I think the best way for you to see to see what it is to see how it works. And it's very simple, and we could, it'll take us just 20 minutes to see how it all works. But before I share my screen, I'll just mention, our approach in order to solve this problem is to integrate with your tax software so that we get a complete picture of your client's tax situation from the prior year. By doing that, what we can then do is we can then generate a questionnaire for each of your clients that's personalized for them, along with a checklist for that client that's personalized for them, the W-2s, the 1099s, the 1098s, and not just documents, by the way, as you'll see during the demo, and categories that, things that you need to ask them, like if they had children in childcare last year, you need to get that information again this year. So, what we do is we integrate with the tax filing software. We generate these questionnaires and checklists for each client. You send that to the client. And then once the client submits that, on your end, you get a work paper that takes all that information, puts it into a format that's really organized for you to proceed with the preparation process. And so for the demo, I'll just jump, let's jump right in. I'll share my screen here.
Like, I'm just so excited about this because the customization that you're going to talk about of these organizers is really just, I think, for me, one of the most exciting features of this piece of software. I have looked for customized organizers that don't take up my time for years and years and years, and I'm really excited to see one coming to fruition. So, do we want to start with this polling question?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. I totally
Yeah,
forgot.
I know. We get it's I forgot too because I was just so excited. But yeah, so we have Matt here. Perfect. Thank you so much, Matt. So what's the most frustrating part of tax prep? Yeah, there's definitely a lot of what you talked about just while we're waiting for everybody to answer are frustrations that, were things that we were experiencing. And part of the reason that we came to you to look at Sanford Tax is a lot of what you talked about. Like, we're picking up a return, we're spending time looking at it only to realize we don't have all of the information. I have to go back to the client. It might be weeks before I get information back from them. I have to get my head back into where I was with that return. I still might not have everything. And there's just a lot of this like layering of time back and forth. And then if you have a practice that's big enough where you have a team that's doing work, you have to, as the manager, the owner, know like what the status of all those returns are at any given time. And it becomes this huge time suck. So we'll give everybody like 10 more seconds to make sure you answer that polling question. And just a quick reminder, if you are looking to get your CPE at the end of this, make sure that you are answering these polling questions for us. And we'll find out what our most frustrating part of tax season is.
How do I, 1 second.
Matt will go ahead and close that question out for us in just 1 second and show us what the poll answer was.
Got it.
See what everybody tells us. Imagine that, collecting information from our clients. Definitely 76% of you said that that is the most frustrating part of tax season.
Awesome. So let me share my screen again, and we'll dive right in. The first thing I'll do is I'll delete all of these sample clients who are in here so we can start from scratch here. And this is the screen that you'll see when you create your free Stanford Tax account. By the way, you could create an account entirely for free and try it out. You don't, there's no implementation or anything like that. It's all self-serve, and you can try it out even right after this, this tax app academy. So I'm going to start by adding clients, and I'm going to select returning clients, even though you could add new clients. You could use Stanford Tax with new clients as well. For my demos, I use Lacert because I have some sample clients in Lacert. And the way the integration works is you get the backup file from your tax software and you drop that right into Stanford Tax. And I have about 10 clients in this backup file. So I'm going to import them in. And Stanford Tax is now generating those questionnaires that I was talking about using the prior year information of each of the clients in the backup. And that takes just a few seconds. So we're already done here. And after you add your clients in, it's very easy to preview the questionnaires and checklists that's generated for them. You just hover above and click preview questionnaire. But what we'll do today is I'll actually go ahead and send it to one of these clients so that you can get the full end-to-end experience and see how your client receives it on their end. And there's actually two ways to send a questionnaire to a client. Every questionnaire comes with a shareable link, which allows you to then send it to them off of the platform. If you communicate with them through your practice management software, you can send it that way. And if you do want to use the shareable links, we also let you get all of the links. You can download that into a CSV and do like a mail merge or upload it into your practice management or CRM. The other way to send the questionnaire is to have Stanford Tax send it on your behalf. And to do that, you would to do that for one client, you would click this button here. But if you want to do it for all of the clients in bulk, you would select all, click send questionnaires. Obviously, there's a template here, and you could do it that way. But for this demo, what we'll do is I'll have Stanford Tax do it for me. You'll notice that there's a template here, which you can obviously customize. The email addresses will show up here from your tax software automatically. You can add emails, you can remove emails, and then you can click send. That email will come from Stanford Tax, but it'll be white labeled with your logo and your firm name. I'll come here and I will go to John's inbox. And here we have an email from ABC Accounting. Of course, that would say your name. And when I click in and I click view questionnaire, your client would get taken to a page like this, asking them to verify their email. There's no usernames or passwords for them to remember, but they do have to verify their email because, of course, as you'll see in a moment, their information, their tax information is going to be in there from the tax software.
I love this feature though. Anytime that we can avoid the clients having to remember the usernames and passwords is just, it's a beautiful feature.
Yeah, yeah. It's we get we hear a lot of horror stories relating to people like forgetting their like Intuit password to get into their Intuit link and that sort of thing. You're
Yep.
not going to
We
be
spend
dealing
a lot of time responding to those emails.
with. Yeah, so cool. So before I click enter questionnaire, I just want to zoom in a little bit on what we have here, this list. And I just want to say a few things about this. This is a list that was generated by Stanford Tax based on the items that were relevant for the client in the prior year. This sample client has about 7 or 8 different categories in this list, but Stanford Tax pulls in over 30 different categories from your tax software. So it's very comprehensive. And the clients really love this because when they come in here and they see this, they feel as if though you took the time to set this up for them. And we think that this is the reason why the completion rates, or at least one of the reasons why the completion rates are so high with Stanford Tax questionnaires. Probably another reason is just the simplicity and how it skips over irrelevant stuff. But the person, if a client thinks that you set this up for them, they're going to be less likely to just ignore it, like they would with, say, a PDF organizer. That for them it's clear that you just spit that out from your tax software. So let me click enter questionnaire here. And the questionnaire has 3 sections: basic info, income, deductions, and credits. Um, the basic info section is going to be all pre-filled in from the tax software. If something changed, they can let you know. Um, you know, Jason Stats just did a video, and he did this funny thing where he used a commercial pilot, so I'll copy him.
I like it. Good change of career move for John Doe.
Yeah, yeah. Um, let's go next. So contact info pre-populated. Stanford Tax will ask about things that commonly change. And if they, say yes, they can obviously give you the new address. And Stanford Tax will ask follow-up questions. And this is going to be pre-populated, marital status pre-populated. Of course, if it changes, you can, hopefully it won't change, but if they're married, but if they do, they could change it. Spouse information pre-populated. Dependents pre-populated in this case too. First dependent, second dependent, and now we're done with the basic info section. And if, let's say, if we go back and pretend like John and Julie had a newborn and up that to 3, then of course Stanford Tax would now know to ask about that. And I do have to fill at least these in, because if I try to go next here, some of these fields are required. So we'll fill those in and then we'll go next. So now we're done with the basic info section. We're at the income section. And you'll notice there's a note. It looks like a Post-it note on the top left. We'll see a couple of examples of this throughout the questionnaire. Stanford Tax automatically generates these based on the prior year information. And it's just another thing that helps with that personalized feeling and to help make sure the client doesn't forget to provide anything. So in this case, it says, John, we suggested some categories for you. And some of these categories are suggested, like job income, interest income. I'll just do like 3 categories so that we can get through. We'll spend about maybe 4 more minutes on the questionnaire, and then I
Yeah,
want to leave time for us to talk about the work paper. That's, you know, I think that's the most magical part of Stanford Tax is that work paper. So I want to leave time for that. I will scroll down just to show you the comprehensiveness of the categories that Stanford Tax covers. But as comprehensive as it is, most clients will see just a small fraction of the questions because Stanford Tax will skip over anything that's not relevant. So let's
beautiful.
go next. Upload your W-2s. Here's another example of the note. In this case, both John and Julie work at the same company. I'm going to upload just the W-2 for John Doe. I purposely want to miss some information as we go through this because we'll see how Stanford Tax handles clients who like to misinformation. All right, the 1099 ints. Here's another example of the note. Let's upload a 1099 int here.
Now, I just typed this answer in the Q&A, but I want to make sure that everybody hears it. Someone asked, what does the client have the opportunity to say that something is no longer relevant? Like if they had a W-2 from the previous year, but they don't have it for this year, they have the opportunity to say, I don't have it, and then the organizer will allow them to continue.
Yeah, that's a great question, and we'll see how that works actually. So if we go back to this page, Julie actually didn't upload her W-2, just John did. And before John and Julie submit this questionnaire, Stanford Tax will ask about that W-2, and
Love it.
it will give them a chance to say why it wasn't uploaded. So we'll see that at the end.
Beautiful.
Rental property. The tax software, this is pre-populated from the tax software. This client had two, but I'm gonna do one just so we can get through it to the end. And the address will be pre-populated, type of property. We ask about the P&L for Schedule C, E, and F. If they do have a P&L, and everything is in there, then there's no reason for them to provide their income and expenses again. In this case, we'll say no P&L, so they will have to give their, it will ask about their expenses. Here, the note will show what it was last year. So that's just another example of the note in action. And the client can add notes of their own if there's something more they want to say, like, this includes $2,000 in security deposits. They can say that. And when we get to the work paper, I'll show you how that shows up in the work paper.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna just move fast to through the rest of this so that we can spend some time on the work paper.
The work paper is really magical. And while I'm sure you're going to get this too, but this was one of our questions for you. If they do have a P&L, or like we already have access to their QuickBooks, for example, that's something that can just basically be added right to the work paper, right?
That's right. So let's just quickly, if I come to income and I add, like, let's say self-employment, we do that with the Schedule E as well, but I'll just
Yeah,
demonstrate with this. And this would be pre-populated if the client did have a Schedule C last year, but it'll ask if the client had a software for their bookkeeping, right? If they say no, then it'll follow up and it'll ask them if they've listed the income and expenses on a document or spreadsheet, because some clients, they'll just put it on like a spreadsheet.
sure.
If they say yes to that, it'll ask them to upload those documents, and then it'll
Beautiful.
ask them if everything is on those documents. Because if everything is, then we could skip over the income and expenses. If we come here, and let's say that if they do use a software for the big bookkeeping, it'll ask if they've granted access. If they say no, then it'll tell them you can grant us access, or
Right.
please upload the statements here. So it goes through all the different range of options for that.
I really love that because we do have a big range with our clients, which was how it kind of came up in conversation with us. Like we have some clients that we do have access to, and I love that this gives them the ability to just skip over that for convenience sake, that they can just say, you already have access to it, and we know that we do, and then we can add that into our work paper at the end. Or if they don't, that it really prompts them to give us that information. And it kind of reiterates that the ease of use here is, hey, just give us access to your QuickBooks and your Zero, which makes it a lot easier on our end to get the information and get started.
Exactly. So now we're done with the income section. We're on the deductions and credits section. I'm not going to select any of the categories here. I'll just scroll down just again to show you the comprehensiveness. But we'll skip forward. Quarterly taxes. I mean, I'll say yes. Federal, state, second state, I'll say no. If they select direct deposit, it'll ask them to confirm what you have in the tax software. I'll do this one to skip over that. And these are the required. If a client tries to go next, it's actually going to ask them to fill these in, because these are like the questions about digital assets and gifts and
This is one of my favorite parts because everybody skips over these required questions. And like from a liability standpoint, we have to get these answered. So I love that it forces them to go through that.
yeah. And the other part that it forces them to answer is this question right here, which is actually the last question of the questionnaire, and it goes back to the question that was asked before about, what about that W-2 that Julie didn't upload? So if the client tries to submit the questionnaire now, which is what they're going to try to do by default, it's it's going to say hold up a second. Like, what about that W-2 and all the other things you left out? And
Yes.
we make it easy for the client to say why it's missing. They don't have to give you an essay or anything like that. They just have to select a reason from the drop down. And one thing that we added this year. Last year, the drop downs were generic reasons. They were all the same reasons for all the categories. And one of the feedbacks that we got from firms using Stanford Tax was, it would be really great if instead of not relevant, right? Because we had like not relevant, they were like, if it's a 1099 int, can can you have an option for I close the account, or if it's a W-2,
Sure.
can you have an option for I left the job? And so we added that one in. And so with the W-2, they could say I left this job, or I'm waiting for a corrected W-2, or 1099 div, I closed this account, or I already gave this to you, or I didn't take distributions, rolled over funds, retirement contributions. I didn't contribute to my retirement this year. I'd like to discuss this further. K1. That one is usually I'm still waiting to receive it, but we do have an option here for you handle this for me. A lot of firms told us that they wanted that option. Foreign accounts, I close this account. Childcare, no longer in childcare. Now the client can submit this. And when the client submits it, they'll get a little, thank you, note from your firm with the name of your firm. If they try to enter the questionnaire, it's going to tell them that the questionnaire is locked. You can unlock it for them, but by default, it'll be locked because we don't want them changing things once they.
After we've started, yeah.
Exactly. They could come back to upload documents though, because with the additional documents, we can easily let you know that there's new documents waiting for you to see. But I do want to mention that we're not relying on clients to come back here to upload their additional documents, because we know, that might happen in a good case 75% of the times, and then or maybe 50% of the times. But they might email you the documents. They might put it in whatever portal you've been using. So when we talk about the work paper now, you'll see why it doesn't actually matter how clients give you those additional documents. Stanford Tax actually handles it regardless of how they give it to you. So we'll discuss that. But let's shift over to the work paper. I'll refresh the page here. The questionnaire status changed to submitted. You'll see here the checklist updated 3 out of 13. Not such a good job, but of this client. But if we come into this work paper, we could see what are those 3 checklist items. In fact, the first document of the work paper is the checklist. So before I talk about this checklist, I just want to quickly give an overview of the work paper. And if we look at the bookmarks on the left, that'll give us an idea of, it'll give us a bird's eye view of what's in the work paper. The first document is the checklist page. The second document is going to be the organizer. And this is not an organizer you're going to send to your clients. It's going to be where the information funnels into for your work paper. And it's for your eyes only. And then the rest of the documents are documents that were provided by the client. They'll be categorized in your work paper. They'll be renamed. And yeah, so let's talk quickly about the checklist. So first thing, you'll notice that the items that were provided by the client were marked completed automatically. Any item that's completed, you'll be able to see why it was completed. There will be a link, right, to see, why was this W-2 completed? Where's that information? Even the rental property, which wasn't a document in this case, the link will be the organizer. And so if you click that, it'll take you to where, to the place in the work paper where that information can be found. For the documents, for the checklist items where they're not completed, the reasons will show up right in the checklist.
This is one of my favorite things, honestly. Just that W-2 where you said, I'm waiting for a corrected W-2. This is like such an invaluable tool for me as a practitioner, because I get this. The client's already submitted it, but now I can read through this checklist and make a decision about whether or not our team is going to start working on this, because I can clearly see that we're waiting for more information and what that more information is. So now I really am empowered to decide, do we want to pick this up and start this, or do we want to wait until we have everything?
Exactly. And the workflow would be to I mean, eventually, and we'll see this during the demo, but what you're going to do is you're going to download this work paper once all the documents come in, and then that work paper that you download will be handed to the preparer, and then you can start the return. So you do, as Christine was saying, have to make that decision on when is that right time to download the work paper. And it is really helpful to know what the reasons for the missing documents are, because let's say like with this 1099 div where it says I closed this account, if it was instead I'm waiting to receive it, you're not gonna want to download that workpaper and get started on the return until that 1099 div comes in. And let's talk about what you would do in that situation where a client sends you some more documents right after they submit their questionnaire. And let's assume, in an ideal situation, what they would do, right, is they would come here and upload the additional documents here. And by the way, you do have a way of, easily requesting those documents. There's a request documents button here. If you click on that, it'll tell you, we noticed we were missing the following documents, and it'll show you the documents that you're still waiting to get from them. And in this case, it's the W-2 from Julie, because Julie told us that she's waiting for a corrected W-2. The 1099 div is not in there, or the K1 is not in there because it says I closed this account. I already gave it to you. So Stanford Tax actually knows what to include in this request documents feature. But anyway, so the ideal situation is the client comes back here and they take the document, and let's take that W-2, or let's take a 1090. Let's actually take this 1099R here, and we'll pretend like you're waiting for that 1099R and add it here. So that would be the ideal, right? And then if we take a look at the bookmark panel here, we'll see it was automatically added and it's processing. And in just a moment, Stanford Tax will rename it. And one of the checklist items, if there is a corresponding checklist item, will get marked completed. Let's just wait for that to happen.
This is amazing. Ah, look at that. It's
There we go.
magical.
Yeah, so if the client were to submit it through here, it would just automatically get added to your workpaper. But what if they don't do that? What if they email it to you? So then you would take here, we have another 1099R here for this one right here, or let's do this 1099 div. So we can, all you would have to do is drag and drop it in like that. And then it takes about 10 seconds.
This is amazing.
Yeah, and while it's processing, I just want to mention a few things about how Stanford Tax is doing this, right? So Stanford Tax is, it's not using like the payer name. You might think, oh, okay, it says Bank of America. They must be they must be matching based on the payer name. The payer name is part of the logic, but we prioritize the EIN. We want to do the matching based on information that is not going to be subjective, right? And everyone has a different way of typing in like the payer name into their tax software. But with the EIN, it's a 9-digit number for you. It's a 9-digit number for anyone else, and it's the same 9-digit number. So Stanford Tax will use things like EIN. In some cases, it'll use the taxpayer or the spouse as well, in addition to the EIN. Like if the taxpayer and spouse work at the same company, the EIN would be the same. Or if the husband and spouse have an account at Bank of America, then the EIN would be the same. So it would look to see, is it in the tax software, is it a taxpayer document? Is it a spouse document? In some cases, it'll also look at the account number with the 1099 like int div. It'll look at the account number. And I do want to mention that there might be cases where there is ambiguity. Like let's say, for example, you have a taxpayer who has 2 accounts in Bank of America, and let's say that you don't type in the account number into your tax software, because in most of the tax software, the account number is an optional field. So Stanford Tax in that case is not going to know which 1099 int is this document referring to. In that case, what happens is it won't mark off the checklist item. It'll obviously add the document to the workpaper. It'll categorize it. It'll rename it, but it'll be up to you to then, come to the checklist, click the checkbox. And by the way, it's not going to just check it off. You're going to have to say why. So you'll have to say why, or you'll have to upload the document. The reason for that is, as I mentioned earlier, every item that's checked off must have a link to that information in the work paper. So you can't just start checking things off without giving justification for why they're checked off. A lot of firms really like that because now they could have staff working on the collection piece, even if
Yeah.
the staff is not very like tax knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Um,
one of my favorite features as well, is that you know, without a tool like this, I almost have to have our seasoned preparers be the ones that are taking the time to go through and deal with document collection, because otherwise I don't necessarily have somebody that knows where they're looking for holes or what documents they're asking for. In this case, Stanford Tax is really doing that for me. It's as simple as me coming in and you know, selecting these request documents, you know, and looking at what's already there. I know I do want to see the work paper, but I do have a couple of questions in the Q&A, and I think a
okay.
couple of them we can answer, and then we'll save the last couple for the end. But related to the questionnaire, this is a great one. Can clients come in, save their input, and finish later?
Yes, I should have mentioned that. So it saves in real time as it's sort of like a Google Docs. And the client can leave at any time. They could even come back in 2 months. It'll ask them to re-verify their email, and that's how they're able to get into their information again, is the email verification.
Beautiful. And then I actually don't know the answer to this question myself. Does the questionnaire cover non-resident international clientele, or is the program intuitive to question possibly missing information not previously provided? In other words, if it wasn't on last year's tax return.
Yeah, so let me start with the second question first.
Sure.
That's an important one because obviously there will be situations where a client will have new information, right? Let me unlock the questionnaire for a second. You would unlock it by clicking these three dots and unlocking, because that way I can come back in as I answer the question. So let's go back in and let's come back to the income section, and let's pretend that this client they went to Las Vegas this past year and they hit the jackpot, and now they have gambling winnings, right? So first thing that you need to do in that case is you need to increase the rates for this client. That's number one. Number two is no, yeah, that was a bad joke. Sorry. No, that's a bad joke. No, so the client, you'll notice it's not suggested for the client because it wasn't in the tax software
Right.
last year, but they have the option of selecting it nonetheless, right? And then it'll ask them to upload the W2G, and it'll ask, actually, in this case, it'll ask some follow-up questions as well. But I do also want to take this opportunity to tell you something else that you can do. Let's say you have a phone interview with them at the beginning of tax season, and they tell you over the phone, they're like, you won't believe, Christine, I won the jackpot at the roulette table. And so you now know that they are expected to give you a W2G, right? So what if you want to, like add that to the checklist or suggest this for them? So you actually can do the following. You can go to their checklist even before you send this to them. I mean, these work papers are available to you the moment you upload them from the tax software, and you would click add item. You would come here, you would find the W2G. You would say here, your jackpot at the Bellagio, right? And then click save. And now check this out. Now, when I come here, that just became suggested.
Suggested. I love that.
Became suggested because the way that these suggested tips work, it's actually pulling directly from the checklist. So, I mean, in most cases, the items will just come from your tax software. But if you added items here, it'll just suggest them. Like, for example, the 1099 essay. If I add a 1099 essay, um, you know, XYZ. Now this category is suggested. You see that? So now if I click the gambling winnings, let me unselect these so we could just get to the gambling winnings faster. So on the W2G page, it will include the note from your checklist, your jackpot from Bellagio, right? So anyway, that's how we handle like new, and you could personalize it, but if you didn't personalize it, the client still obviously can tell you about that new information. And then to your question about foreign non-resident income. So are you referring to are you referring to the 1040 NR? Is that, or is it like foreign income?
I'm not entirely clear from the question. So whoever had the question, if you want to clarify a little bit about specifically what you were looking for in terms of whether or not it handles non-resident clientele, feel free to clarify and maybe we can answer that one a little bit better for you. But this is another great one, Dan. How do you handle new clients that you did not have in your tax software last year?
Sounds good. So that one, when I click add clients, you can select new clients. And for new clients, there's two ways to do it. We have a magic link option. And by the way, I guess I didn't mention that we support also the business returns, but we have a magic link option, which is the same link that you would send to every new client. And then once they start filling it out, they would automatically get added into your list on that main page. The pro to the magic link is you don't need to add them to your to Stanford Tax ahead of time. The con is you can't personalize their experience ahead of sending it to them. If you do want to personalize their experience, you would add them one by one. And then if you do that, then you could personalize it for them ahead of time because they show up here. And if I come here to preview questionnaire, there's no items in this list that we looked at before. But if you go into Samuel Doe, and again, there's no checklist here, but if you start adding checklist items for this client, then they would automatically show up.
It's actually really fast
Let me
to
just
just go add based on the previous year. I can tell you that in our practice, the way that we're handling this as best practice is that we're actually receiving the prior year return and putting a draft of it into our software for 2023 to be able to roll forward for a couple of reasons. One, because we want to see this personalized in here, but also it's really driving that best practice of making sure that we have a complete copy of the prior year return before we begin any work on the current year. We
yeah.
have some clarification from George's question on non-resident. He said we have some non-resident individuals having businesses in the U.S. So it includes 1040 NR and business tax forms such as 1120 due to being single member LLC owners.
Yeah, so it's on our roadmap to add the 1040 NR. That one, right now we support 1120, 1120 S 1065. We don't do the 1040 NR or the 1041 or the 990, but those are on our roadmap. The one thing I want to mention is we do have a section here for foreign accounts and foreign income. We're making that more. I mean, we go over all the FBAR questions and we ask for any foreign income documents. We are actually making this more comprehensive because we have some firms where their clients have foreign trusts and that sort of thing. And so we're actually going to be pulling that information and adding that right into the checklist. So
That's
hopefully that
great.
answers your question. Yeah.
I have two more quick questions. Does this work with ATX? So that the tax preparation software ATX?
So we thought that we would have ATX in time for this tax season, and so I'm sorry to disappoint, but we're not gonna have it ready for this tax season, but we did mention at some point that we would. So we're giving steep discounts to ATX users for this tax season. And so you could reach out to us about that if you're still interested in using it. You would have to do the personalization manually for this tax season.
Well, hopefully we can answer or solve that for them with our next because Pro Connect is coming on next, and so maybe we can just get a conversion, which will make everything a lot easier for them. And you do work with Drake, is that correct?
That's right.
Yep. And I have one more for you. This was from the beginning, and I didn't want to interrupt our flow, but question says, Lacert backups have a lot of folders and files. Do you have the ability to import just one client at a time?
Of course, you could do that either as you're creating the backup in Lacert, you can just select the clients that you'd like to import, uh, and then just import them. Or you can, after you drop in the file, you could also deselect clients you don't want to import.
Awesome. So we have about 3 minutes left, and there's a couple of things that I really love that I want you to show everybody. If you can go back to the checklist, um, the it's the organizer, I believe, because you changed a couple of pieces of information, and I really loved this the first time you showed me, like, we changed our client's occupation. So that's something that I wouldn't necessarily know to look at year over year because it's getting brought in from the prior year tax return, but the software does such a beautiful job of highlighting for me that the client changed their occupation and their address.
Yeah, so we highlight the fields that have changed. And I guess let me just quickly
I was
download.
gonna say, and we didn't download the workpaper. I wanna show everybody what this looks like when it downloads.
Yeah, I'll do that. And I think I could, it'll take a minute to cover what I want to cover with the downloaded workpaper, and it'll touch upon what you asked about. So I'll be mindful of time. I know we only have 2 minutes left here. Um, so first of all, the PDF is a native PDF. It's a fillable PDF. And so the bookmarks here, you get the bookmarks that, that you would get. And if we expand the organizer, if we expand the organizer bookmark, you'll see the different pages of the organizer. And we want you to know what to pay attention to, right? So we highlight these in yellow. We bold the pages of the organizer that have client information in them, right? If I click here on rental property worksheet, um, you'll notice there's client information in here. That's why it's bolded. The other nice things about the organizer, the prior year numbers show up right in the organizer. And the other thing, you remember I left the note as about that the security deposit that shows up in the organizer as an annotation. Because it's a native PDF, we can just add an annotation here to the PDF. And if we hover above it, it says this includes $2,000 in security deposits. And it's not by coincidence that it's showing up here where the rental income is. And also, if I come here to this view within Adobe, because it's an annotation, if a client had like 10 notes, you'd see all of them here. And if you're all the way at the top, you can click here and it'll just take you right to that page.
This is so beautiful. I just wanna share with you, Dan, Miriam said in the Q&A, "This is fantastic." I completely agree. I really appreciate your time. So if people are interested in getting more information or trying out Stanford Tax, is the best option to just head over to the website and check it out?
That's right. It's very easy to try it out yourself. Let me just quickly, 30 seconds. We have a free plan here, 5
Yeah.
returns for free. All you have to do is go to our homepage and click try for free. And our pricing is per client. But I mean, I first try it out for free, obviously, and drop in some clients from your tax software.
This was so awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I just want to reiterate that we're implementing this in our practice this year. We're very, very excited about it. Everything you just showed us is going to incredibly shrink how much back and forth time we're spending that everybody told us at the beginning was their biggest time suck. So awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.